Okay, I'm a little bit of on a roll here, I guess. So I'm going to make one more video. I'm going to make this video about multiples, EV to EBITDA, PE ratio, and much less the price to book ratio. And I hope you understand the essence of why that price to book ratio is so interesting and why these PE ratios and EV to EBITDA ratios, which everybody talks about, which people make these comparisons of, which people use in terminal value calculation, can be such BS. I'm sorry, and when I'm speaking, I'm afraid I have to listen to a little tiny part of these videos when I upload them, and I sniffle a little bit like an old man who's another old man who's sitting there talking sitting there talking too much, and I can't stand it. I got to get my teeth fixed. Okay, that's the truth. In talking about multiples, let's just go through a couple of examples. And if we have a discounted free cash flow model, again, came from Merton Miller, the one person I will not criticize, who I have met, whose ideas led to the discounted cash flow model, whack everything else, because before him we were just valuing dividends, and now maybe that's what we should do a little again in project finance. But when we get to the terminal value, if we put a little bit of a different whack in, because we saw whack has such a dramatic effect, it's the growth rate, it's the cost of capital, it's the required growth rate. If you change whack by 2%, it's an enormous effect on your value. And when you get that wrong, or you put a difference in, you get a crazy kind of result. When you try to say, okay, let's make an explicit projection for a few years and then a terminal value, well, if you put multiples in, you'll get a little difference. When we do this data table and put these ranges in, we'll get a little bit of a difference. We'll get not quite as much. Okay, so, and when you look at these Harvard Business School cases or Northwestern Business School cases, oh my God, and the ones used by the University of Chicago, they all have these damn, multiples all over the place, and maybe they're trying to say don't use these, but they don't really say why. We're going to see that for the same company, through time, they change dramatically, and they don't really tell you what the cost of capital is. Not like the price to book ratio. And we can't really do them for a different industry, because companies in the same industries can have such different returns, cost of capital, growth, and variation. If you start from a low level, go to a high level, start from a high, you get such a different answer. We need to understand what's wrong with these things more than anything else. And something that I find really important is if we take the EV to EBITDA ratio, or the PE ratio, we could compute that for project finance. And we'll do that. And when you compute it for one single investment, you get such a dramatic different result than when you compute this for a portfolio of assets. And that allows you to understand when a company is getting old, the EV to EBITDA ratio might be really low, because the EBITDA is still high, but then the value goes down because we're going to have to replace our assets if the market understands that. And when the asset is really young, the EV to EBITDA ratio is really high. So the EV to EBITDA ratio, and to a certain extent the PE ratio, depend on the age of the assets. And we can't just assume that assets all get replaced. We saw from the last video the capex to depreciation can be all different. Okay, so whatever. I just kind of said that, I think. Okay, and here's, I don't know even why I put this in, an example of, I think this is the Dow 30 without the financial companies, and we get just numbers all over the place. Okay, whatever that means. And this is what I used to do. I used to go crazy. Let's prove what the EV to EBITDA ratio and prove that that's driven by the return whacking the growth just like any other value, but it's also driven by the depreciation, the taxes. And the most important thing is the change over time, okay? And this is PE ratios going up, whatever. Here, just to use our financial database, and perhaps this is Disney. Talk about a company that gets people addicted. My God, how disgusting the prices they charge. The returns went up and up and up, and then the returns suddenly, they've fallen off, okay? Now, when the returns are really, really low, people expect the returns to be high, and the PE ratio goes up. When the returns are low, and the PE ratio should go down, although it's really high, they didn't know that it was coming down. Okay, those are the kinds of things we can do. Exxon, I suppose, which one should I use here? When the returns were relatively low, the PE ratio, and we could look at the forward PE ratio or the historic, maybe we'll look at the forward PE ratio when we pretend you can project the next year's earnings, because they kind of tell you what, with guidance, they tell you what those earnings are going to be. By the way, I never invest in stocks. I'm too afraid. I'm such an idiot. Okay, and when the return is going to go up, the PE ratio is high. When the return is really high, the PE is down, and here maybe it's up because people think it's going to be high. It tells you more about period by period what the expectations are period by period than anything else. So trying to take these EV to EBITDA ratios, and here I suppose when their returns were going down, the PE ratio should have been up when they think the returns are going up and down, and basically it's the change in return that really affects these things. And I've got a couple of other slides, but on what we'll really do is do this again. Now, once again, what I'm going to do now is switch to Excel. So this might be boring to people. When I got yelled at, oh God, I got yelled at for trying to demonstrate things with Excel. How could you do anything else? And when you do this, you got to understand and create an example that really works and demonstrates something. And you're not just playing around with Excel and coloring and all that stuff, although coloring, I'm sorry, I bounced on something. That is the most interesting thing. So this time, way up here, I told you about this nice, really, really simple model, and I told you about making some of these equations. And now we're going to take that model and illustrate. We put a PE ratio in here just for the valuation at the beginning, but we didn't really look at what happens if the PE ratio changes, okay? And we'll really study kind of, and it's so simple to do, so simple to explain. And I used to go crazy with these things, and it's just not that hard anymore. What should I say about this? It's hard to get the thoughts right. And people who think, we were fancy in Excel and all that, that's not what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm going to leave the formatting till a little bit later. Okay, now here's what we did. We have a cost of capital and we have a growth rate. And I was able to just put a spinner box on this growth rate. And what I need to do now is I had a couple of more examples. I gave you all these lists. Here's what happened to Amazon. When the stock market came down, it's probably driven by, in 2023, this gigantic change in Amazon. And if we also look at, who else did I put? I put Tesla. These are the things that are driving the stock. I think a lot of these gigantic value companies who make Elon Musk was about to put something else in between, the richest man in the world. But what happened here is the same kind of thing. It went up, and then the whole market came down here, and then it kind of bounced back a little bit. And when it was really high, the EV to EBITDA ratio, maybe I'll start in 2018. I'm just trying to, again, promote this idea. I'm not going to earn anything from the model, but if you have some examples and you want to talk to me about how you could do this yourself, I would love to do this, because you cannot get data the way you used to, and I'm going to moan about that a lot more later on. So this EV to EBITDA ratio is really high when you expected the returns to go up, and then it went crashing down when you expected the returns to go down, and now it's kind of still very high, which means that you're earning more than your cost of capital, hopefully, and you're able to grow. And we could show it with PE too. Okay, same kind of pattern. It's almost the same numbers, but it's not the same. I was just a little bit afraid. Let's look at Microsoft, which just has had this performance forever. It's not maybe Apple. Okay, it's not quite that, but now they charge you. They figured out how to charge you all that stuff. I think I use Excel all the time, but I think they suck. Sorry, they're so much better at marketing than they are at writing programs, and they just buy everything from somebody else. They have a very high return, and when their return went, this isn't consistent. This is right. I suppose when their return is really high, you expect it to go down a little. When their return is low, then they expect it to go up, blah, blah, blah. That's the kind of stuff you see. EV to EBITDA, the same pattern, not very interesting. And if we, let's do one more thing. Let's go all the way back to 1985 for Microsoft. The remarkable kind of performance they've had in terms of returns and price to book ratios and all the rest of it, okay, for a long period of time. So then there's no real evidence that they are, well, we should look at their growth. My God, this is 25% IRR. Unbelievable kind of IRR that allows this Bill Gates to do everything. Their returns went down, and then they started charging for 365 probably and all that stuff. I don't know what they really did. They started getting their marketing in gear, and now their return gone. The question is, like anything else, can they maintain this and grow at the same time? And if we look at their, I'm sorry, I'm starting with this. I didn't mean to, actually. Whoops. This goes through some of the technical details how I did all this stuff. And where's my growth? I didn't put the growth one in here. Sorry about that. This one I've been changing things in the middle. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Let's close this file. Okay. Okay, I have my generic macros open, which is important, I think. Okay, and I also have this file, and I call this my 500-year example. I don't put a terminal value in, and I try to make people understand that when you value a corporation, it's endless. I've been looking for that word for so long. Endless, not infinite. That's too religious sounding. Not ongoing. That's too boring. Endless. I tried to learn that word in Espanol. I can't remember how to say it. Somebody can tell me. Okay, so this time, right now, what you do is let's just walk through this. We have the cost of capital, the growth. If we change the growth a little bit, what happens is you reduce your payout ratio. That's our 1 minus G, 1 minus G over ROE. That's what the payout ratio is. And if you reduce your payout ratio, you get less money up front, but you grow faster. You make the opening balance. You start with a book value, Shift Control Q from generic macros. You start with that. Opening balance equals the closing balance. You multiply this by a return on equity, And that's your opening equity balance, the book value multiplied by the ROE. ROE is income divided by book value, so income is ROE times book value, whatever. And then the dividend payout ratio is 1 minus G over R, and we get our closing balance. And that closing balance grows faster, and if it grows faster, our earnings grow and our dividend grows. And we get all of these relationships, and it's just mathematical, and it works. And if I put in right now, let me see, I've got too high a growth. Let's put a little bit lower growth. And we get exactly the same number if we take the NPV, and this time I'm going to do it a little bit different, and I'm using a fairly low cost of capital. I'm going to lock this and take the dividends. This, I suppose, it would be the value at the beginning of the year. That's okay. And notice how it becomes enormous. That value is the same value you would get if you took 1 minus G. Did I put G here? No, I put G here. I hope growth. No. Sorry. You take the earnings. Here's what you do. I'm sorry. You take the earnings times the dividend payout ratio to get the dividend, and you put 1 minus G growth down here, divided by ROE, okay? And you multiply that by 1 plus the growth rate. You always have to make that little adjustment, okay? And then you take that whole thing and divide the whole thing by K. That's the cost of capital minus the growth, okay? And that just proves that's the famous value driver formula. Oh, shit. Maybe I need a little bracket here or something like that. Did I do something wrong here? K minus growth. Just a minute. Sorry about that. Maybe I got K wrong. Okay, I just had range names wrong. How embarrassing. I used return and cost of capital, not ROE and K. I used that somewhere else. And I also didn't have to multiply by 1 plus G because we're taking the price at the beginning of the period, and this is the earnings kind of at the end of the period, really. That's the way you do all of these models, okay? So that just illustrates that formula, and then if you put formula text, that's how I did this, FORM, like this. You just go back, and then it gives you the text, okay? Now, let's do this. What we're going to do is compute this value over time. And basically our value is going up because we're starting at our earnings are going up, and we're starting at the beginning of the period. And then I suppose what we could do is compute our value and divide that. Let's divide that by the opening book value. And why? Just a minute. I don't have another file open. Just a minute. Our value. Whoops! If I took the right one. This is the value of the company divided by the opening book value, and then we get a really high price to book. I'm pressing Shift Control R and that stays the same. Now, if we lowered our return, make it 8%, then of course the price to book ratio goes down. But if we let's look at the price to earnings ratio, and let's see how the price to earnings ratio changes. And we just take the value of the stock divided by the earnings up here, and I put earnings 1 because I've got this silly range name in, and we could almost take the earnings in the next year, and then we get a 22 times PE ratio. Let's say I change the return and make the return 6%. Okay, the PE ratio goes down a little bit. the price to book came much, much closer to 1 because our cost of capital here, let's make our cost of capital 6. And then we got the same thing. Now, if I have my cost of capital equal to the, if I have my cost of capital equal to the return, excuse me, then let's change the growth rate around, and we can change the growth rate up. Am I changing it up? Just a minute. I didn't see it. Okay, I put it up. And that's kind of interesting. Oh, that went too high. I can't make the growth rate equal the cost of capital. And it's changing it's kind of interesting. It's changing the PE ratio just a little bit, but not much. I'm kind of almost, and I hope I put it so I can put it, I didn't even make it so it could be negative. Sorry about that. Okay, so that's just a little bit of an introduction. If I make a higher return than my cost of capital, okay, I'm putting more realistic, what I think are realistic numbers in, and then I can grow the company more. Am I growing it? Come on. Then you can see there's a dramatic increase with growth. So the PE ratio reflects growth in a sense. I don't want to say anything like that, but it kind of reflects the effect of growth more than when I didn't really look at the price to book ratio. That also reflects growth when we're earning a return more than our cost of capital. And this is all you need. Trying to get too fancy, like I have wasted days on getting too fancy without doing this. What a crazy idiot I am, okay? If we earn a return of less than the cost of capital, then our price to book ratio is below 1. And now if I increase the growth rate, I hope the PE ratio is going to go down. It does. So you can, whoops, then it went all the way down. So the lower the growth affects the PE ratio and the return affects the PE ratio. We can't kind of get this benchmark number of 1 to the price to book ratio of 1 the way we did it before. The way we did it before, but we can start seeing things, seeing whatever. So let's say now let's put our ROE back up to 8%. But this time, let's change this, and now let's go through some Excel. Oh, oops, I'm putting the growth rate higher, okay? And the ROE is now, let's make this ROE 6%. And let's say it grows to 8%. Okay, and then let's say it starts in year 1 at 6%, and I need to press Shift Control 1 and 1, and let's say it grows to 8% by year 5. Okay, and then what you can do now, I have nothing in this row, and I have nothing in only numbers starting here. So then you could just put equal lookup, and you can go up to this 1, and then you say, okay, I want to look up this 1, and I want to look it up against this, and I can't do this. I think I know what I can do. I can put 500 here, and then it will look up these things. So I'm kind of cheating. I'll put equal lookup. And then when it hits year 500, which is a little far in the future, this is our forever, and it really illustrates the problem with corporate models going forever. If I put this one here, and then I think I can put this one here without it being a circular reference, and then I can just go forward, and it goes up to 8%. And what happens, can you see the PE ratio is high in anticipation of the return going up. I think since we did it forward, the return goes up here. If we did it the other way, if we put 8% and 6% here, then we've got the opposite effect. Then we have a low PE ratio when the return is high because our earnings are high, and then it goes high actually once we hit the lower return. It's all backwards, and so you cannot use this. These things aren't stable. And let's just do one more thing. When we let's make this go to 10, but instead of making the return just fall in one simple period, let's put equal lookup where's long lookup, where's my interpolate, interpolate lookup, which is not in Excel. And the only way to get that interpolate lookup is you take this one and you do exactly the same thing you would in a lookup here. And I just programmed a little interpolation. I hope that works. And maybe it didn't work because of the way I did it here. Yes, it did work. It went from 8% and it gradually goes down to 6%. Oh, but then it went down to 0. I think what I need to do is, excuse me for this, on the interpolate lookup, I'm going to have to move it up like this, and then we might have to do it again. Let's do it up to this one. Let's not put our 500 in here. So I'm going to have to check my little programming here. And just a minute. I gotta turn it off for a second. Okay, excuse me for that. I don't know when I turned it on and off, and I'm not going to worry about that. But here's our interpolate lookup. I just didn't copy it properly. Okay, it's just like the lookup, but this time instead of one thing, it gradually goes down to 6 and then stays at 6. That 500 I put in, I think, screwed it up a little bit. And then you can see the value to the earnings starting low and going high. Now, if you want this interpolate lookup, let's just do a little bit of our generic macro. I told you when I remember in Switzerland years ago, and they asked me, they took me to dinner, what's your passion in your life? So what a question, I had to think. And then it just blurted out. I said, oh, of course, it's coloring spreadsheets. And we're trying to get this working a little bit better. So right now what I'm going to do is take away all the colors. I think it's really working pretty well. So if you don't work with some fancy investment bank, and maybe I'm going to, let's take away the little boxes too. So if you go to reset colors right there, remove the borders and continue, and instead of changing your mind, I guess, and not resetting, you can put it there. And how about this? Let's make the top few rows black, and we'll make this black too, and then I guess we'll put, let's put a couple of things up here, and let's put year for ROE, and then ROE, I don't know, table or something. And now what I've done here is we can put year or something, or period. And then what you do, oh, it's already done it. And then you put a percent sign. Now that, maybe price to book, let's put times here. You just press Shift Control D, and whoops, no, it doesn't work because of the stupid thing, but that's because of my, whatever, I'm recording. All right, so that's that. And then if we want to color the sheet, you decide how you want to color the input colors over here. The title will make like a fast convention. We don't need a sum function, and then we'll color our trues and false. If we did link something to another sheet, we'd color it, and I'll put only 3 rows at the top and click this one. And then now what I've done is made this work much, much, much faster. Even if it's taking a second right now, that's because we're on the, I'm recording, okay? It really is much more reasonable, okay? So if you need access to something and want to make it a little fancier, then you can do it. Of course, you can change all the colors around, blah, blah, blah. And I don't really have any true falses in here. That's too bad. But in this one, I do. And so you can see what happens when you colored it with the true false. That's extremely important. And so that's a little bit of evaluation of a price to book ratio, and there's no kind of magic answer, and there's not a big deal, and you've got to understand the effect of the changes in the returns and how dramatically that can affect the PE ratio, and how dangerous it would be to just take a PE ratio from an industry. Now I'm going to try something, and I'm going to compute a EV to EBITDA ratio and a PE ratio for project finance. Now I did this already. Let's make a project finance model and see if we can make a project finance model in a minute or two. Okay, and let's begin with our period, and we want to make a flexible period. I want to show the effect. I'll start with 25 years. The effect of the I'm thinking about something else. The effect of the life, and let's put sequence. Okay, and whoops. Okay, and when you put sequence, you just put a comma and then click on this thing, and we get the 25 years. So if I want to put 10 years, and we can look at the EV to EBITDA over 10 years, we can do something like that. Okay, and I'm going to see how far we can get with a project finance model. Let's put some EBITDA. Let's put some CapEx first. Okay, and let's just make it 1,000. Okay, and now I think we need a couple of flags, a construction flag, and we'll put an operation flag. And what I'm trying to do is practice and see if we can really do a lot of this. And then let's make a kind of operating analysis. Okay, and then below the operating analysis, we'll put some EBITDA in here, and everything depends on the EBITDA. So let's put 80 or something in for the EBITDA. Okay, and then we'll put free cash flow, which is CapEx minus the EBITDA, and we can get our project IRR, and we can get our, let's put a cost of capital. I'm not going to ever call this a WACC. I'll go crazy if I do that, and we'll put a cost of capital in, and then we'll get an NPV of the free cash. Now that's well, I'm going to first do it with a constant cost of capital, and I strongly have advocated many times that that's not quite right. That NPV of cash gives us a enterprise value. Okay, and then we can take the enterprise value, and so let's put maybe down here, after we, let's call this the valuation, and we get the enterprise value, and let's put the EV to EBITDA. Okay, and let's show you, and with different kind of numbers, let's show you what our valuation comes up to be. And what I'd like to do, and I don't know how much time I have to do this, what I'd like to do is also put some debt into our project, And after we put the debt, we get the equity cash flow. And what I might do is, and then once we get the equity cash flow, we can also get the net income, and we can put our PE ratio and see what happens to projects over time. Now, somebody the other day, and this is opposite from this person I just went crazy about, who said, "Oh, I'm too good for all that. This is too easy. This is too easy. Blah blah blah." It's not easy. If I knew, I wasn't a horrible student. I paid attention to those damn MBA classes. I believed all that crap, and most of it was real crap. And I'm getting a heart attack. When I went through all their little formulas for betas and all that stuff, I believed all this crap. Nobody told me about how the PE ratio really works, and demonstrated how it changes with changes in the growth rate and all that. Nobody told me about project finance. There's not even a project finance class at University of Chicago, those idiot places. And now maybe you're seeing why I'm complaining so much. And just to start with a 0. Okay, I got that out of my system just a little bit. I'll tell you more about it. The construction flag is, let's just make one period of construction. Let's make it easy, and let's see how far we can get. When this thing with a hash equals 0, then it's the construction. When it's not this one with a hash, it's not that, then it's the operation. So we have 25, we got to make this number +1 if we're a little fancier with that. And then I hope it extended this for you, so we don't need all my shift control R, but we will need it. Okay. Then for our capex, we could grow the EBITDA a little bit, so we can press a F4 and multiply this by the construction flag, and I'm just practicing this. Then I'm going to kind of make a little thing here, and then we can take our operating flag and multiply that by our operations and get that done. Okay, and and then we can take our free cash. Come on, free cash. And we'll put this in now. These and then we get our EBITDA minus. This one. I think I've got to put a hash here minus this as a hash, like that, to get it to go all the way across. Okay. Shoot. You still have to. I can't get the formatting right. Maybe there's a little trick to formatting, and then we put IRR and we click on that one and put our hash. Okay, so that's how we could get started. Now let's say our cost of capital is 5%. Okay, and that means we can compute the NPV of our cash, and I don't know if we can do this. And I suggest you do the same sort of thing and just see how far you can get. And we can't. I wanted that to keep going forward. Can I multiply that by this one? Will it go forward? And no, it doesn't work because so I stopped. I got stuck. I wanted to see how far we could get with all of these. Okay, whatever. I'm sorry I'm doing this in the video, and what we'll do is we'll just keep going like this. And I don't really want to do that. I want to go. Can I? This kind of messed me up. Let me see. Can I go? What happens if I go there? and then I copy this, but it doesn't really work. And then I'm going to go equal NPV. So I just kind of proved the problems with this stuff. So it looked kind of cool, and then it didn't work. Okay, and then I'm going to copy this back. And why didn't it give me exactly? Oh, if I would have put 6.24, if I would have made this the discount rate, then I'm not sure why. Did I go all the way to AH? I need to go to AH, so I'm making a couple of mistakes. And can I copy this now? Yes, and there's our value. And now if we make a little graph of this, we can see that I'll press alternate and F1 to make a little value. Our value of our cash flow goes down as we get old. It's what happened to me, although I never had a very high value anyway, because I never had high cash flow, because I don't know how to charge people for anything. I'm an idiot. And then that's really our enterprise value. Okay, and we can really kind of just compute it after the beginning. And then we can look at our EBITDA and divide it by our enterprise value, or enterprise value divided by EBITDA, excuse me. Now, of course, you could put growth rates in and everything else. And now, unlike the other one, if I press alternate and F1 again, we see that the EV to the enterprise value goes down just like the value. And if we have a brand new asset, so if we have really old assets, our EV to EBITDA should be really low because we're going to have to replace them. If we just put something into service right now, our value should be up. And all of this kind of stuff, now I know this is EV to EBITDA and not PE ratio, all of that kind of analysis we did with this PE ratio, which, okay, call it EV to EBITDA almost, not quite, is very different, and it changes as a plant ages. That's the big deal. And we didn't have to get, I'll call this PF EV to EBITDA, okay? But then let's also put debt into our project, and to put debt, now I don't know if I can do this. Let's put a tenor. Okay, you notice how I use the English. Oh, and let's also, the EV to EBITDA does show you it's higher if we put a lower cost of capital in. And I suppose what we could try to do, now we have to be really careful, if I change this to 10 years, of course, what we need to do is increase this. Let's make it 200 or something, and I don't know if that's 150. We should do a goal seek to get the same kind of okay. We should to get the same kind of IRR, and then we can look at our EV to EBITDA over the and why. It's the same kind of pattern. The numbers are very different. When we put, so remember this was 7 in the first period. If we put 25 years, I'm just wondering why I didn't get 0 here, but okay. Oh, I didn't get 0 here either. Oh, that's because our cost of capital is not the same as our growth. So if I put, what did we have here before, 80 or something? Okay, so we get different numbers depending on the age of the asset. The EV to EBITDA depends on all these things, which is not just the rate of return. And if you have different companies, and you're looking at different companies with different stages of their life, some old like me, some young like you, and some a portfolio of different assets, you can see how difficult that EV to EBITDA ratio really is to interpret. Let's do a little more here. Let's put a tenure of 15 years. Let's make it 20 years. And let's see if we can do the same thing still. Now, if I take this one and make it a hash, I think I can make it less than or equal to, whoops, that we this time we need a little and. We need the and, it's not the construction flag. Oops, and I think I have to put the hash in there, and oh, the and does not work with the damn, oh, we're going to just have to cheat. We're going to have to put, I'm going to cheat here. I just tried this with Hetty. This number hash is less than or equal to this number. Sorry about that. Oops, and why did that not work? Oh, maybe we have to take it here like this. Sorry about it. I'm really getting messed up. So this wonderful stuff doesn't work quite as well as we said. This number has to be less than, with a hash, less than or equal to this one. Okay, and I'm sure we could have done it. What? Less than or equal to. Okay, and then we can put let's put our interest rate, and let's put our debt to capital, and let's put our debt in, and let's put our debt service in. And we'll just use the PMT function, and hopefully we'll then show you what happens to the PE ratio. Now, I've got to admit, I've never done this before. So we need an interest rate a little bit lower than this. Let's make the interest rate 4.5%. Ooh, notice purposely, I put the cost of, not 45, I put the cost of capital just a smidgen below, Shift Control P. All of that stuff works with the whatever, the generic macros. I put that just a little bit below that. Let's just, okay, I'm just going to take this one and multiply it by this one and put a hash. Okay, I'm just testing myself to see how far we can really get. And why did that not switch it to false? Is it because oh yeah, it switched it to false, okay? And let's make the debt to capital 70%, 75%, okay? And that means the debt is 75% times the capex, okay? And let's go and get our debt service, which is PMT of the interest rate, and the number of periods, and a minus on the debt. And we can just take that PMT. Let's multiply this one by the tenure of the debt, and also multiply it by the operation flag. So that's just a little bit of a trick. So in a way we can get around that. Okay, and then so that means that our equity cash flow, and let's put our debt over here. Let's just make our debt this multiplied. It's above the multiplication sign. I remember having to show somebody that again and again. And we spent most of our time showing somebody where the and I didn't mean to do that. I meant to multiply it by the construction flag, didn't I? Okay, and so that's how we can kind of get our model built. And that means the equity cash flow is the capex plus the debt plus the EBITDA minus the debt service. And I should have done all of these with hashes, and that takes even longer, so I don't know if that's that great to do. And then we get the equity cash flow, and it better go up after we're finished paying off the debt. And I hope I did this debt service okay, I hope. And then we get the equity IRR, which should be somewhat greater than the 6.24%. So let's put it equal IRR, and we put a little hash here, and oops, it's way too much. Did I do this wrong? Did I do this right? I think I did it right. 20 years. Okay. Is that big? Let's make this 5%. Wow, just a minute. Let's make this. No, I've got to pause. I've got something clearly wrong. Okay, it just didn't work. I'm just going to do it by hand. This plus the debt plus the EBITDA minus the debt service. Maybe I could have put the debt service as a minus. And then let's put this as 5%. And this IRR, now we have to do the whole way. So I just can't quite get there with all of that stuff, okay? So maybe let's put 4.5% back here. And we've done a project finance model. Oh, we're kind of getting somewhere, but not everywhere, okay? And I think even lawyers, everybody should have to do simple things like this if you work in project finance. Now, I don't need this, but what we can do now is we can get the net income, which is going to be we're going to have to get the debt out of the repayment out of the debt service, and we can compute the PE ratio with dividends. Maybe the first thing, let's relax a little and let's go and color the sheet, okay? And I'm getting tired. This is okay, I'm not that tired. I can still do this, but we don't want to put this stuff over here. Okay, let's delete that. Okay, I have a little bit, I always have to work on this stupid generic macros, and I waste so much time on it. You can't imagine. And let's put net income. So to get our net income, the first thing we can put is our opening debt and put less the repayments and put the closing and put an interest. And then after we get our interest, we can take our let's put a depreciation, and we'll just make it a depreciation expense. Fuck. And then then we have our EBITDA, so we can get our EBIT. I can't do anything anymore. And then after the EBIT, we'll say less the interest. And maybe we should have started up here with EBITDA, and then we can get our net income. And then we can take our PE ratio as our equity value, which we'll do the same thing. We'll put our equity value over time, just like we did. Let's put an equity discount rate. And I'm going to argue that that's a little bit higher than the debt rate. You could almost argue it's about the same or lower, because you have upsides in equity from refinancing and selling the assets, and you don't have those upsides in the debt. You can, but starting to do this re-leveraging and unleveraging, oh my God, would that be shit? Okay, and then we'll put equity value, and then let's just see what happens to our PE ratio. And I have no idea. I've never done this before. And then I'm going to switch off the video, and I'm going to be finished with making videos for a little while. I'm going to make our closing balance of the debt just up here. I'm cheating a little bit. And now forget all of this fancy stuff. We'll take our debt service minus the interest, and that gives us our balance, our repayment, because debt service is interest plus repayment. So repayment is total debt service minus the interest, and we'll take the opening balance and multiply it in cheating by I should have put that over here. I'll press Shift Control Q to get all this right, and we're long gone with our fancy little other things. So now we have our interest, and to just make sure it all works is it all goes down to zero at the end. So that's a really good check. And whenever you have a closing balance, people seem to press Shift Control E. And I really, those people who said, "Oh no, don't show me any coloring," go to hell. Okay, and then let's put our EBITDA. Let's get our EBITDA way up at the top. Okay, and copy that across. And this time, let's get our depreciation. Maybe I'll collect our CapEx way at the top, and we can take our CapEx and divide that by our this one. I could even try to take this one and multiply it. Why I'm doing this now after I've said this is so bad, no, it doesn't even work anymore. Okay, so we take this, multiply it by the operating period. Okay, we didn't really have to do that. And then we get our EBIT. Okay, and then now I'm curious to see kind of what happens to the PE ratio when we're finished paying off the debt. So what happens here is going to be something kind of funny. We have a really low income up first, and now, but our equity value, let's put a discount rate 4.5. Let's make our discount rate 5.5%, something like that. That might be too high. And our equity, and then we put our NPV. And I have to be careful. Do you take, you really, when I took this NPV of the enterprise value, if I did it right, I would have taken the next year like this. That's how we really should have done it, okay? And then, so it gives us a little, but the pattern, the idea is obviously the same, okay? And because what we're doing is everything, all the cash flows occur at the end of the year, and we're taking our value at the end of the year. So the value at the end of the year is kind of the value of the next year. Put NPV, and we go to our discount rate lock that, and then let's take our equity cash flow up here. Next year, equity cash flow. That one, okay? And ooh, that's a high number. Is that a high number? That's surprising. Why is that? Is that higher than our enterprise value? That's bizarre. Just a minute. I took a cost of capital and our equity cash flow. Just a second. I've got a mistake. I've got a clear mistake. Okay, I don't know what I was doing with all that shit. What a waste of time that was, maybe. Whatever, I was just trying to experiment, which I think you should try and see how things work, and I try it in a video. Maybe that's stupid. So that's our equity value, and if we kind of, let's just make a little graph of this, alternate in F1, it doesn't have the same kind of pattern, which is kind of interesting, because as you're paying off the debt, it doesn't have the same kind of thing, and we could kind of go crazy about this, but I guess I put it in one line down. So our PE ratio is going to be our equity cash flow divided by a tiny, tiny little bit of earnings. And then what happens is as our interest goes down, I guess our earnings go up, and we have this funny looking, it's not funny looking, but our PE ratio for individual asset. And remember, my rental car, I don't know if I talked about my rental car. Somebody was talking about budget rental car in Saudi to me the other day. And he said, we're talking about the value and changing the depreciation and all of that. And I told him, which was kind of BS, I told him all of that crap you see in financial statements. I would rather see the IRR on one car or a sample of 50 cars. I would like to see what kind of IRR are you making on those cars, and then try to take the present value of all of one of those cars, make it to the whole fleet, and then really understand the cash flow over time to see what the true value of this company is. That would be so much better for me than looking at all these financial statements, depreciation. What happens if the age of the fleet is changing and we suddenly have to make a bunch of new cars and everything else? So you can see here that these PE ratios and EV to EBITDA ratios have a lot in them. And I know this video, you're not watching this video probably by now, and it's a long video, whatever. But making simple models, isn't it better making simple models than trying to go crazy with these other things? And you can yell at me, oh, that's too simple. God, that guy, I'm just going nuts. That's why I had to make these videos as therapy. Okay, and the reason I haven't made videos is really because I've been doing all that stuff with collecting all that data and going crazy because we can't get it from the internet anymore. And at the same time with Hetty, we've been working on this resolving circular references in the real monster models. So let's stop this. Okay, and it's not that.